Hello, friends. Welcome back to our Bible study, The Choices We Make, a journey through the book of Philippians, or more appropriately, the letter to the church at Philippi. As we've talked about in the past weeks, that this is a letter Paul wrote to the church at Philippi from Paul's imprisonment in Rome, and likely from Paul's time on death row. Effectively in the weeks and months preceding his execution for little more than proclaiming and preaching Jesus Christ. And it might be easy for somebody who has only known a life of comfort to suggest we should rejoice regardless of our circumstances. Obviously, that's not Paul writing from prison. It might also be easy to suggest that a person who has only known discomfort and imprisonment and hardship might also be able to encourage us to rejoice regardless of our circumstances. But what about a person who has known both comfort and discomfort, who has known both wealth and poverty, who has known both surplus and insufficiency? That's Paul. Paul is writing this letter from a place of poverty and imprisonment and difficulty. And in this letter, Paul makes it clear in verse 3 that, So I'm trying to record this video outside because I thought the scenery would be really helpful. But the wind is not making it very productive with my Bible. And every time I open the Word to share a verse, the pages blow. Oh, American problems. I come out here to a public space, a nice little nature preserve to record my video, and I'm complaining about the wind that is not allowing my pages to stay closed. That might be noteworthy. Throughout this series, we've talked about the choices we make. We really have. And some of those choices are, one, to choose joy, even in the midst of our suffering, because joy is the key to the locks of our imprisonment. In fact, it's our rejoicing that sets us free. And next week, we're going to finish this series talking about our need to choose to rejoice, to choose praise. You know, the second week of the series, we talked about choosing life, that Paul said to die is gain and to be with Jesus, and there is nothing greater, but to live is better for your benefit. And so in Jesus Christ, we discovered that life really truly is a win-win proposition. There is no loss in Jesus Christ. And then last week, we talked about our need our need to choose to shine, which means we choose not to grumble and complain. We choose not to be sucked into the loss of this world, into the darkness, but instead we shine brightly with the light of life, the light of this world, the light of Jesus Christ. And this week, what Paul does, and I'm sorry I can't open the words of my Bible, so I would love to, but Paul opens up by saying he has known privilege and station and influence and wealth. He has known what it is to have the best of everything handed to him. He had it. He was a Jew of Jews. He was zealous about his purpose and his mission and his calling, about his ministry and his work. He was well respected, and he had received the best of educations. And on the road to Damascus, when he was confronted by the resurrected Christ, everything changed. And Paul gave all of that up. He gave it all up so that he might know the power of Christ's resurrection, so that he might discover the resurrection power that God poured out into the grave at work in his own flesh. And what Paul says about all the privilege and all the station and all the wealth and all the reputation that he gave up for Jesus Christ, he counted it all as rubbish, as dung, as waste, as nothing to even be counted for the unsurpassable gift of Jesus Christ. And so Paul then makes a bold declaration. Right after saying that, Paul seeks to know the resurrection power of Jesus Christ, to know him and the power of his resurrection. Verse 10. Paul goes on in verse 12 to say, listen, I have not yet already attained this goal. I have not already been made perfect, but I make every effort to take hold of it, because I have been taken hold of by Christ. And then Paul goes on to lay it down. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and reaching forward to what is ahead, I pursue as my goal. Now hear that. Paul knew wealth and then poverty. Paul knew station and then homelessness. Paul knew great reputation and then abandonment, imprisonment. Paul knew comfort and suffering. And many of us have been there. Maybe our suffering pales in comparison to Paul's, who's been crushed and pressed down, who's been shipwrecked, and falsely arrested, and now sitting on death row. But maybe our suffering feels just as weighty as cancer rages once more through our bodies, or our arthritis seems to cripple our hands and our strength, rob us of strength, or as one more relationship bends and breaks, as the enemy whispers in our ear about our past mistakes and our past sins and our brokenness and our overwhelming trauma. But what Paul reminds us of in this moment is that we need to forget what is behind and press on for what is ahead. Let me read this verse 13 again. I do not consider myself to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do. One thing I do. One thing. Forgetting what is behind and reaching forward to what is ahead, clinging for what lies ahead, I pursue as my goal the prize promised by God's heavenly call in Christ Jesus. And then he goes on to say, therefore, that those of us who are mature think in this way. See, listen. We all have skeletons in our closet. Every one of us has lived lives paved with regret and trauma. Many of us have known comfort and wealth and have seen it stripped from us. It seems like nothing more than pursuing Jesus Christ. Follow Paul's example and do this one thing. Forget what is behind. Fix your eyes on what lie ahead. Fix your eyes on Jesus and pursue with your very life. Pursue the prize promised in the heavenly call of God towards Jesus Christ. Choose heaven this day. Hey, I love you. I pray that you have an incredible discussion with your life. God bless. And I can't wait to see you next week as we wrap this all up.